Over and above what we want, we will always get what we need. The divine intelligence within us is greater than any chat GPT you could ever create. Tapping into that, the infinite source of all that ever is, we have access to that.
Flow is a good place to start. And just from my own personal experience, I've done really well with flow in many areas of my life in different patches. And for the last several years, my life has been very in flow. And for the last year or so, it's kind of changed a lot. There's been a lot more challenges when it comes to getting back into flow. And I know there's a lot changing in the world right now, and there's a lot of changes for me personally. And I've found it a little bit more difficult to find that flow again. So it's perfect to come into this conversation because I'd love to hear your thoughts around flow and perhaps how you find your way into flow in these days.
Yeah, sure. For me also, flow has been a journey and continues to be a journey. There was a little bit of a defining moment for me last year in that I read the amazing book. I don't know whether I'm sure you've come across it, Steve, by Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. And I read that book and something deep changed within me. So I've been kind of raving about it. You know, when you read a book and you're just like, oh, this is amazing, and you want to tell everyone. And it's not that I hadn't come across Michael Singer before, because I had. And I was gifted his book, The Untethered Soul, way back in, I don't know, 2017 or something. And so I was familiar with his work, but you know how divine timing shows up and everything suddenly aligns. And it was actually a facilitator who said they just read it was amazing, and that, you know, had I thought about it. And it was one of those moments where, you know, my intuition was on point and I just thought, I really need to explore this, but I don't know why. And I read his book and something changed within me, absolutely, because it's all really about aligning with the flow of life. And there was a theme for me last year around, and I've done lots of work with this over the years, but a deepening of the understanding of letting go of control in my life. And, you know, experiences in my early childhood and growing up led me to, I guess, a bit of a survival strategy, that control for me was something that was really important in my life in order to kind of keep me safe. I had an experience of trauma that kind of led me to, you know, being in fight or flight a lot of my childhood growing up. And so control was a strategy for me. And so there's been this gentle unpeeling of these levels of control that can be very, very subtle. So last year was obviously, must have come to a time in my life where I was ready to release that in a much, much deeper way. And that book was really a catalyst for me in doing more work around that. And so now, you know, when I find myself from that place of self-awareness going back into that place of trying to control the stuff around me, you know, I really check in and let go of that, really intentionally release that need to control and align with, you know, the intelligence of life, the wisdom of nature and the wisdom of the universe and life itself. And it's an art, Steve, isn't it? It really is an art, that it's a constant learning and coming back to that place of self-awareness again. Is like, am I trying to control the outcome? Am I trying to control the circumstances? Okay, I'm going to let go. And when you let go, there is naturally more flow in your life. And I don't know whether you've had that experience too, Steve.
Yeah, it comes up in so many forms. As you were just sharing that, I was thinking about, you know, we started talking about flow, right? And I've always felt that I'm really good at getting into flow.
Yes.
And then you think about different people, places, and situations, and this certain skill sets can change depending on who you're around, where you are. and what's going on in your life. So it's not this generalized thing of I'm just a master at flow and then I just get on with life. Because
Yeah.
like you said about control, one of the things was coming up for me is I think I'm pretty good at letting go of control in general,
Yes.
especially when it's an outside circumstance, maybe just for me. Maybe it's
Yeah.
work, maybe it's something in my personal situation. But I'm just reflecting upon, say, family, for example.
Yeah.
And then as soon as family comes into it, we can often get into this space of, okay, I would like them to behave differently, or they're not doing what I think is best for them. And then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden that control comes in again, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to say, want them to change so that we can feel better. But then there's that energy of control again when it feels kind of gripping on.
Yeah.
And like I said, when it's just personal, I can recognize that, I can let go so much easier. But when there's a moving part and it keeps coming back in this way, sometimes that journey of unraveling is almost daily. It happens maybe several times a day, and you keep coming back to that space.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
going through some of those moments again. Family is the
Mm-hmm.
best teacher
Oh my
for personal
goodness.
growth and letting go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've noticed this myself. My mum, who's now about to be 80 this year, and we've been having some of these conversations, and whenever there's a health challenge or something comes up with a loved one, and with the tool set that we have, the skills that we have, Steve, there's maybe the idea that what can I do to help? How can I intervene? How can I support? How can I soothe the situation? How can I make things better? And and that's great, if it's welcomed. And sometimes there's learning for them in that experience. And so sometimes it's about stepping back a little bit and allowing them to go through the experience or the journey that they're going through in a way that honors their growth and their learning rather than trying to, I guess, rush in and try and make things better. And so it does, there's often situations in life that kind of show up that show you, oh, okay, here's another piece where I'm trying to manage the situation or I'm trying to make things better or to help. But actually, when you unpeel the layers, and for me, I can only speak for myself, Steve, but whether this resonates for you is what I notice is that actually underneath the helping, underneath the desire to make things better, can also be if you're okay, I'm okay scenario. Okay, it soothes my nervous system to know that you're okay. Do you see what I mean? So the desire to help is kind of on the surface, and of course we do. We want to make sure that our loved ones are healthy, well, fit, and that they're enjoying life, that they're happy, they feel fulfilled. Okay, and that's a great goal to have. To be able to support those around you. But underneath that, it's like, what are we getting out of that situation of needing to rush in and help and support? Um, and can we be in that state of flow and being calm and relaxed while others around us are going through challenges? Okay, and maybe they don't want our help. Maybe they are loved ones around us who are not aligned with our way of thinking or the processes that we use. And I see this a lot when I'm teaching, and people, will come to the workshop and say, "This is such a beautiful environment to be in because I'm just surrounded by like-minded people. When I go home, I don't have that luxury, and so I don't feel confident or comfortable to talk about the things that are really important to me." So that's kind of another element to it. Um, yeah, so I just find it really fascinating to explore that internal dynamic that underpins, our desire to help others as well.
Yeah, and it's really important to have the community so that we can
It
speak the
is.
language that we can't generally speak in when we go back to our families or work
Yeah,
and things like that. It's
yeah,
especially with Psyche community
Yeah,
as one example, I realized it's like a different language.
it is.
So we understand certain processes and how things unravel and how we change programs and beliefs. Not that there aren't other ways of doing it, but because we've done it in a specific way, we can actually have these conversations that we can't have with anyone else at all. And somehow that allows us to just feel more connected and really understand.
Yeah.
You know, here's something really fun coming up for me right now is, and it's related to you. When I
Okay.
first did the workshop with you, the basic workshop with Psyche, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. First of all,
Wow.
I've said to people so many times over the years, that is the best money I've ever spent on anything, and it's
Wow.
still true to this day. And I'd slightly digress, but after this workshop, I realized how simple it can be to shift and change programs, beliefs,
Yeah.
traumas,
Yeah.
um, all of, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting to find maybe a solution to a problem of some sort. So I posted a question of, can someone help me to figure out, I can't remember the exact example, but can
Mhm.
somebody help me to figure out how to change this problem that I have going on, and how do I approach this? And I remember you posting in the comments something as simple as, what do you want instead? And it was so funny because in that moment there was this sort of mild trigger of, I want somebody to give me the answer. I
I
want
know.
somebody to help me to find that.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because that really sums up the essence of, say, the word ISUMATAQ, for example, and that
Yes.
knowing that I could give you some answer and jump in
Mhm.
and do that, or
Mhm.
I can just trust that you have all
Yes.
the wisdom within you and I have all the time in the world. And so I'm going to drop this question and let that come from within you. And
Exactly.
if it causes struggle for a week or 2 weeks or however long, a
Yeah.
minute, who knows? I'm comfortable with that because I
Mhm.
have no need or desire to jump in to help you because I already know that you already have the answer within. And it caused me to, of course, look into that. And then it didn't take very long before I saw the beautiful value in that. And then I became more comfortable to just ask that and then just leave it.
Yes.
Because what do I want instead? It caused me to now think about that. And then, of course, I could find the solution with the tools to shift that problem and move ahead with that. So it's just, yeah, it's funny.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I think, you know, it ties in around the community piece that we were talking about as well. Is I think so often we come from a place where we don't believe that we're already whole. You know, we feel like there's something that's broken within us or something that needs to be fixed or that we are less than complete, less than whole. And it leads us to searching outside of ourselves for the answer. And by the same measure, you know, if we go back to what we were talking about how important it is to have a community and to be able to speak from the heart and share what it is that we feel aligned with and what we believe in and what's important to us, that sometimes if we don't feel safe or able to do that, then we're not showing up as whole either. We're not showing up in a place of, this is me, wholehearted, this is all of me, okay? And that's okay. And if you feel aligned with it, amazing. And if you don't, that's okay. Um, but it's seeing the divinity and the wisdom within whoever we're in the space with, like here today, being able to just see that intelligence, that wisdom, that divinity within each of us, and knowing that we are truly connected.
Mm,
And Psyche certainly for me has helped me to remove some of those layers of conditioning and programming and beliefs that stopped me from showing up. And from that place of being completely whole and being comfortable sharing who I am. And that has been one of the greatest gifts, because, we come into this human life already perfect. We come into this reality perfect. And it's the experiences in life, the layers of conditioning that we gather in the journey that lead us to believe that we are less than that. Okay, so, what I love about Psych-K and any process actually that allows you to peel away those layers is it allows you to return to that place of what you are, what you already are, who you truly are, that divinity, that divine spark within, and let go of this understanding or belief that we're less than that. That spiritual being having a human experience.
Mm. When did it actually begin for you, this journey? Was this kind of awareness always part of your life, or was there a pre-Sharon and a current Sharon?
There was both, really. So I guess when I was much younger, I now know, looking back, that I had a really strong intuition. I had experiences where, I'm sure that you're the same, Steve. I would think of somebody and then the phone would ring and that would be the person on the phone. Or I would be, walking into town and somebody would cross my mind and then suddenly I'd bump into them. So I had these kind of experiences where I felt very connected and very aligned with my own internal world, my intuition and spirit, I guess. And then experiences, I think, as we all have in life, take us along different paths. And for me, some of the experiences, I had a traumatic experience in childhood that led me to the belief really that the world is not really a safe place. And so from that place, we gather beliefs on top of that. And then when I was 18, I had another real defining moment or experience in my life where I lost my dad very suddenly. Very sadly, he had a brain hemorrhage and he just didn't wake up one morning, hadn't been ill or anything. So that was a huge, huge shock, as you can imagine. I was about to go off to college. And so, my mum and my sister and myself were all in shock in that period of time. And so over the next 6 to 8 months or so, what showed up for me, because I wasn't really able to process that grief immediately, because I found myself in a new set of circumstances, away at college, finding my feet, as you do. I was 18 years old at the time, so still young, finding my way in the world. And so I wasn't able to process that in a healthy way. And what happened next really was that when we're not able to process emotion in a healthy and effective way and allow ourselves that space and time to grieve or to process, then the wisdom of our body so often does it on our behalf. And so what then happened was I became sick. And my body started to show symptoms of, actually there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of trauma in here that needs to be processed. And so we need to let go of something. I often talk about it a little bit like if you imagine a glass of water and you fill the water to the top and you've still got room. By that point in my life, it was almost like the glass was so full that there was nowhere else for the water to go. And so it gradually started seeping over the sides. And that was, to me, the point where physical symptoms started to show up because something needed to change. And by a series of synchronistic events, really, initially I went down the path of going to the GP, asking, there's something not quite right, numerous tests, and it just kept coming back saying, there's nothing wrong. Maybe it's a virus, maybe it's a post-virus, could be something that will resolve itself, but nobody could give me any answers, right? So I kept going back. It was like a yo-yo. Same answers, another series of tests, there's nothing wrong. So I left the GP surgery this one day, and honestly, Steve, I was at the point where I was thinking, I know there's something wrong with me. This authority figure, or various authority figures, are telling me there's nothing wrong. So the conclusion is I'm going mad. Okay, it must be some mental, emotional thing for me. and there's something wrong with me. So I'm in this place of thinking I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. And I happened to, obviously, in that stage, I became really emotional and didn't really know what to do next. And so I found myself on the doorstep of a friend. You know this story, Steve. I've shared this before. I found this, I was knocking on the door, obviously in floods of tears, came in. My friend said, "Oh my goodness, come in, come in." And in typical English style, she said, "Just grab a seat. I'll go and make a cup of tea." And she just left me, not obviously not knowing what to do at all in that moment. And so she did. But what happened was she had a flatmate, and that amazing, beautiful person just sat with me in that moment. And she was one of those people who you all know, you have met somebody similar who has that ability to hold space and just listen. Just listen. So here I'm saying, I don't know what's wrong, I don't know what's going on, I'm going mad, blah, blah, blah. And she just listened. And when there was a pause in the conversation, she said, "Well, I have this thing, this tool in my toolkit that if you're interested and if you want to know what's going on, we could explore it. We could find out." And I was like, anything. By this point, I just, anything that could have helped or could have given me an answer or a solution. We talked about looking outside of ourselves, didn't we? I was at a loss. I did not know what was going on. And I hadn't made the connection between the grief and the physical symptoms by this point in my life, really. So she said, "Okay, if you just stand up for a second, raise your arm out to the side," and you and I know that what was about to happen was muscle testing. Okay, so it wasn't Psych-K at that particular time in my life. It was just muscle testing to use as a kind of almost a diagnostic tool, really, just which is not the way we use it in Psych-K, but just trying to gather some information to connect with my subconscious mind to really find out what was going on. And so doing a series of tests, which to me was completely new and mind-blowing, that you could get this information, you could receive this information from inside of yourself, this information, this wisdom, and have answers. And so through a series of tests, we determined what was underpinning the physical situation, physical condition. It wasn't the initial grief, but it was something that happened in the past. And she was able to tell me and deliver that information. And it was mind-blowing, Steve, in that moment. Now, it took me, even the knowing, so even, activating or accessing that wisdom within me immediately alleviated some of the physical symptoms for me. So it shifted stuff, even just the knowing, which again is amazing. That insight, that wisdom to be able to join the dots was immense. And then it took me maybe 2 or 3 years, probably a couple of years actually, before I found a way to address some of that physical stuff. And that was through finding a homeopath, which opened a door to me of a different way of looking at ourselves holistically, from a perspective of being whole, not just dissecting and addressing physical symptoms or taking a pill and solving a problem in that way. Okay, it wasn't like that. It was taking into account every part of me, my physical health, my mental, emotional state, what made things better, worse, what was unique to me around this physical symptom, rather than a label that said, here's the label, here's the solution, take this. And then, it may or may not help. For homeopathy, it started, I think it must have been about a really gentle 5-year journey for me of working with an amazing homeopath that gently unpicked a lot of stuff in my childhood, the grief, of course, and really connected me back to my innate health, which is always within us. It's always there, and we're always able to access no matter what's going on. Okay. And so that was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And around that time, maybe in my early 20s, I think probably, I guess you could call it a bit of a spiritual awakening, in those kind of late teens, early 20s. And it unlocked within me this desire to search for other things that I had not encountered before. You know, if we can be seen as whole, if we can address these physical symptoms, mental, emotional states in a different way, gosh, this has like opened a whole new way of viewing the world. And you know, we're talking sort of early 90s, that kind of era. And so this wasn't talked about in the same way that it is these days. It wasn't so available, I guess is the right word to look at it. So this explorative journey for me opened up so many different doorways of exploring and reading and you know, encountering lots of different methodologies, processes, different ways of working. And I loved it. I absolutely adored it. So yeah, it's a real spiritual awakening really for me. And then I was so impressed with my experience with homeopathy that I decided that I was going to train to become a homeopath. And that was kind of the next piece of my journey. But what's fascinating, I think, is when we talk about coming back to that place of control, just to give you some context. You know, I guess that in my early days of working with clients and helping and supporting others, there really was an element of rescuer there, I have to say. And probably if I look back in hindsight, maybe because I wasn't able to help my dad, maybe there was other things related to experiences in childhood. But I mean, certainly being able to change some of those beliefs and programs to be able to have healthy boundaries, to be able to support people in a way where now you and I know in working with Psyche, we really are aligned with this idea that the person, the partner we're working with, already has the answers, already has the wisdom within them. It's not about us trying to fix somebody or to give them the solution. The opposite is the case.
And,
Absolutely.
and you know, I think there's this deep innate knowing within all of us.
Yeah.
When you hear these quotes or statements, it says that
Yeah.
the key is within you, or you know, you already have the answers. There's something within us that knows, no matter who you are.
Yes.
We can still have a resistance to that. No, I
Sure.
don't want to know that because I have to do the work, you know.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
for a lot of people, how do they actually begin to tap into that ability to find that within them?
Well, I guess there are a number of different ways. You know, maybe meditation could be for some people. And I think one of the things is it's really important to find your way. And for me, it certainly has been what has felt like quite a long journey, you know, to finding my way. And along that journey, which has been beautiful and exactly as it's meant to have been, I've gathered skills and tools and understanding and ways of working that work for me. So I think first it's probably about, you know, find a way that works for you and that you feel aligned with. But now, you know, honestly, knowing Psyche and knowing what you and I know, like honestly, I think the easiest way is to be able to remove those layers, those beliefs around and open up possibility and potential for what is possible because we can, you know, we can feel like our beliefs are a truth, right? And that's not really the case, okay? Because the majority of beliefs that we've taken on, we've inherited from somewhere else, from someone else. And there are programs that are running that as if they are true, okay?
Mm.
But when we start to think about, well, something in my life is not working anymore, there's typically a belief or a program that's underpinning it. We can change that. New possibility opens up in a way that it wasn't there before. So for me now, the Psyche is absolutely my go-to in any of those situations. But I think it really is important to share because it's certainly been my journey, and I'm sure it has been with you, Steve. Is that find a way that works for you. You know, we're not here today advocating Psyche is the only way. No, not of course not. But find some way where you can access that inner wisdom and be able to let go of any of those beliefs or programs that are no longer serving you, or that are telling you a goal that you want to achieve or something you want to experience in life is not possible. Okay, let go of
Mm.
that if you can, in any way.
Mm. Makes me want to dive into the topic of simplicity
Oh,
because
absolutely.
because like yourself, as soon as I discovered that it was possible to take some sort of charge of my life and
Yeah.
have that realization, I am actually creating my reality. Then I started finding different tools, and
Mm-hmm.
I've done that for many years, 10 plus years, nearly 15 years. And so many things have really, really helped me along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that can really confuse the situation unnecessarily sometimes is this overcomplicated idea of you have to go step by step doing this thing over here, and it's linear, it's
Yeah.
complicated, and doesn't necessarily work for everyone, or in the sense of the way we process information sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
For example, theta healing is something that I've come across, and I found it to be, it's cool, it's powerful. I liked it. I enjoyed studying it. But there were aspects to it that didn't work for me so well because I don't visualize. And it's very, you need to kind of be able to visualize with that
Mm-hmm.
more, generally speaking. So it's a little bit more difficult. Plus, I found that the languaging and the respect of someone's space and really honoring that they have the answers within them, there was something lacking in the teaching from the fundamental level. Now, that's not to say that an individual wouldn't have those strong values and hold these, but that's just one example of some of the tools that I not. It's great, but to me it felt a little bit too complicated, and not. It doesn't necessarily need to be that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And there is now, in this day and age, there are so many different modalities. Everyone's creating a new modality every week about something else. They get information from here, and then they go, oh, I'm going to improve upon it. I'm going to make it here, and I'm going to put it in a language that other people understand. And sometimes it feels like it just overcomplicates the whole situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're very overwhelmed with what's right and what can work. And it puts me to this idea that we often give too much power to the tool itself rather
Yes.
than what you're saying is it's already within us. Now,
Yeah.
having a hammer and a nail to put up a shelf or, put up a picture is helpful to have that tool.
Simplicity is, again, something for me that is central to the work that I do these days. Hasn't always been the case. Okay. If I go back to, when I was a practicing homeopath, and especially in the early days, um, it required a lot of head work. Okay. A lot of intellectual, trying to find the remedy, finding the right remedy, and the pressure and responsibility that I took on board in order to do that was a huge learning curve for me, because I'd come from this place of growing up where I was and still am incredibly, I really value my intuitive. And so I kind of arrived at a bit of a crossroads with homeopathy, um, whereby my intuition and my intellect kind of were in conflict a little bit. And so I would work really hard to find the right remedy to be able to prescribe for whatever was going on. And sometimes had some amazing results, sometimes less so. And I remember a teacher of mine at the time saying, okay, there's a reason why um, it's a practice and the person we're working with is a patient. So the patient is patient while we're practicing. And I was like, is that what they're coming for us to practice? And are they paying for us to practice? You know, and it felt a little bit like on them at the time. And so I guess when I look back, I know that I would never have continued to work in that way of using intellect. At the time, it maybe satisfied my ego a little bit. Complexity often does that, fills that hole of maybe lacking in self-esteem in some way. So it's like the more difficult this is, the more intelligent it makes me look. And that really wasn't who I was, but I recognize a little bit of that, the ego within us all. So when I came across Psych-K, honestly, or even muscle testing, because the bit in between was I came across muscle testing again, so it's almost like full circle when my son was born. So I was a newly qualified homeopath, working with clients and doing okay, learning through the process. But my son, when we started to wean him with food, we realized that, there was something that was not quite right. And he would be sick quite often, typically once a month, every month, with kind of a respiratory infection. And so I kind of identified, I think there's something around food here going on. And so, long story short, I had him tested in the traditional way, so pinprick tested. Information came back. I looked at all the list of stuff that he was reacting to, responding to, and I was like, this is not okay. Like, I can't take these big food groups out. How will he grow? How will he thrive? So I needed to find another way. So back I am with my seeker hat on, looking for solutions. Being a newly qualified homeopath, I was doing my best detective work to try and find what was the right remedies to be able to support him. And again, a little breadcrumb along the trail that course corrected my life was I came across a company that offered ways to work with homeopathy that could desensitize food intolerances, sensitivities. And so I started to go and explore down that route. And when I phoned them up, the guy who answered the phone turned out to be the person who owns the company, who I since found out never answers the phone, which is fascinating. So it was meant to be the conversation that day, an amazing company called New Vistas in Ireland. And he said, Sharon, you need to learn muscle testing. You need not, it would be nice to, or try exploring this as a direction. You need to learn muscle testing. There's a course in London, a couple of weeks, just go and learn it, and it will give you all the answers you're looking for. So we come full circle back to, the wisdom is in the person you're working with. So when I learned muscle testing in terms of prescribing homeopathic remedies that way, oh my goodness, it changed all of that intellectual, I need to work out and I need to work hard with all my books to try and find the right remedy. No, suddenly I was able to communicate with his system. His subconscious could tell me exactly what was going on, where the blocks were in the body, what was underpinning them, mental, emotional, physical, allergy, structural, whatever was going on, and what he needed in what order. Now, this was a massive level of trust for me, because some of the homeopathic remedies that came up as kind of their solution were remedies I'd never heard of, remedies I'd never worked with. So I needed a level of trust to say, okay, well, let's give it a go. Okay, with phenomenal results. So the more I was leaning into using muscle testing, the more I was seeing the results, the more I was blown away, the less I had my head in my books trying to find intellectually the solution or the remedy. Okay. And it was working amazingly well. So at that point, I was really happy with my practice. I wasn't looking for anything else at all.